So, hello everybody, and welcome to the third in our series of Kickstarter Colloquia. These are intended to be a platform to feature the work by many of the teams who have been working very hard this year in the Preparing for Astrophysics with LSST program. The colloquium are going to take a series of short talks by representatives of each project, and after each of the talks we will have time for questions and also at the end. As you've just heard, the colloquia are being recorded, and the recordings are to be posted on YouTube for the benefit of those of us who are not in the same time zone and are unable to join us live. So if you don't wish to be recorded, please keep your camera off. And in the interests of hearing the speaker properly, please mute your microphone if you're not actually speaking. With that said, feel free to pose questions in the chat screen for Zoom anytime during the talks, and we will come to those during the Q&A session after each talk. So this week's colloquia is a little bit different in that we have a very novel pilot program to build and encourage a new generation of Rubin scientists led by Antonino Cucchiara, who is going to kick us off with an overview talk, and then we're going to hear from two of the projects that this particular program actually enabled. So take it away, Nino.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thanks everybody for being here today. As Rachel said, my name is Antonino Cucchiara. I am currently a program scientist at NASA headquarters, but at the time of the Kickstarter grant, I was actually faculty at a community college called College of Marin in Northern California, United States. And the title of this presentation is the title of our Kickstarter program, which was named Preparing for Astrophysics with LSST, Building a Diverse Generation of Rubin Scientists. And this is not just making a one person, of course. I want to acknowledge the great contribution of my colleagues, Sara Bonito at the Observatory di Palermo in Italy, or William Clarkson at University of Michigan Dearborn in the United States, Marcus Undermark at the University of Heidelberg in Germany, and Marcus Makler at the University of San Martin in Argentina. As you can see, we represent essentially the essence of Rubin, which spans multiple continents across the globe. Let's go straight into it. The motivation behind this pilot program was the fact that we realized that our astronomical community is essentially a multi-society, multicultural, and diverse group of individuals with the common goals of enhance the humankind's knowledge of the cosmos. That's the essence behind Rubin and LSST. But even more in the past decade, we realized there are two key developments that motivate us to write this proposal that was fortunately successfully funded. One was the growing number of international collaboration that spans multi-time zone, multi-countries, multicultural, and the needs of consistent accessibility in astronomical resources and representation among different cross-section of society. Again, we are trying to create a community that is capable of performing science with Rubin at any moment in time and space. So LSST, as I said, is an international collaboration, and many efforts within the collaboration have been put in place at different levels to increase the diverse representations, to create an information resource inclusiveness, and create an equitable distribution of resources. Within Rubin, there are many efforts, including the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion groups within the science collaborations that have been formed in the past years to achieve these three major goals. Our goal in our particular project is creating the possibility and enabling science from diverse audiences and researchers that coming from what we call minority STEM institution or astronomers that serves, for example, traditional underserved student population, not necessarily in the United States, but in other areas of the world. These institutions and research are often underfunded, and therefore the lack of funding prevent them to access research in many ways, including Rubin. So thanks to the contribution of the Isaac Simmons Foundation, we designed this pilot program and initiatives that was structured in place so that Rubin facilities were, access to Rubin facilities was facilitated, and to allow researchers that might be Rubin agnostic, we call it, not necessarily knowledgeable of Rubin, the Rubin ecosystem, from the hardware to the data analysis to the data stream, to actually approach Rubin in an easier way and maybe bring their own contribution to the science produced by the project overall. So in a nutshell, what we did, we tried to engage, or we engaged 4 faculty student teams. These are paired with 1 faculty and 1 students from a minority of institution. We welcomed into Rubin-related research through hands-on activities with the intent to gain knowledge and skills and build collaborations. So we focus here on these particular individuals and the science that they are already familiar with, and we found pair within Rubin and the science collaboration. We introduced them the entire LSST ecosystem, the structure, the network of researcher, the hardware, and the data stream. And the idea was to forge a sustainable path for a partnership that will be benefit not just the faculty, and by proxy, the entire Rubin through the DI lens, where DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. So it's a dual path of mutual advantage. So the strategy, I try to summarize this in 4 major areas. The first was to decrease the funding barrier. So MSI faculty are often overburdened by the commitments that prevent them to actually continue to do research at the level that we're doing maybe when they were postdocs. When they reach a point of faculty in some institutions, specifically these minority institutions, they're underfunded. And so they need to find a way to carve time to do research out of their commitments, for example, teaching. So what we did, we provided funds for faculty and summer students to some time of their summer students' time, so that they can commit again into their research. We facilitate, as I said, we facilitate the entrance into the Rubin ecosystem. So again, because of the overall commitments at those institutions, this faculty might not have, they already have specific scientific interest, but they are not able to continue. And so matching this faculty pair with students pair with this Rubin scientists in a science collaboration that has similar scientific interests will lower the barrier and make this faculty more welcome into the community, because he or she feels they can already give a contribution to the scientific outcome of the overall Rubin project. So what we did, we leveraged our knowledge in the science collaboration, which SC stands for science collaboration. I apologize for not mentioning it earlier. And we matched these mentors with the faculty through what we call an interest form. This is just a Google form that we sent out to the interest parties. We use a faculty-centered focus here because we want the faculty at those institutions to be sort of the pivotal point between Rubin and a new generation of astronomers or future astronomers. You will hear today from Luis, which is one of the students in our program, that what he did during the program and where he's going to go moving forward. So we work with the mentors, which are the Rubin scientists, to make sure that there is a shared understanding of everybody's responsibility, needs, and availabilities. Again, going back to the commitments, the institutional commitment for these folks. So we create flexible time meetings. We let the groups sort of self-organize their own mentorship activities. We share all the material, we share all the resources, and we encourage co-mentoring. And we did that, monthly check-ins with the teams, so we make sure that every team, every group was moving forward in their own projects. And then finally, we promote sustainability. So we want the teams to feel that they belong to Rubin and they can contribute beyond the simple few months of this program. So we encourage them to think about what they can do with Rubin moving forward. So not only we introduce them to the Rubin Science Collaboration, the teams, and the resources, for example, the Data Preview 0.2, but we also provide them overview of funding opportunities across different agencies, NASA, Department of Defense, NSF, especially when there are funding specifically dedicated for institutions similar to theirs. So we offer all these resources and strategies within them, inside and outside Rubin, to continue to sustain the research effort if they will to do so. So as I said, we designed a short interest form to collect interest among colleagues in the US and outside about this program. In the first 2 weeks after we send the first email out, we received 3 times more applicants that we can actually support, which speaks to us that this is something that the community is interested. wants and desires. So that, again, going back to what's coming next after this pilot, I think Rubin should consider a similar model moving forward. We also send out a call for mentors through all the Rubin Science Collaboration channels that we know of. And we create a mentee guide to ensure that we align expectation of the mentors in Rubin with the mentees, which are this faculty and student pair. So we selected a team, one at South Carolina State University, one at Angelo State, one at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, and one at the Universidad Nacional de Salta in Argentina. And you can see here the projects are different in nature. You see the mentors here for different science collaboration. So very briefly, what type of
activity? Sorry to interrupt, but are you sharing slides at all?
Oh my gosh. My bad. And nobody told me earlier. My gosh. All right. Oh my God. All right.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier.
That's okay. So these slides will be probably, we can post this slide online, Rachel, as well, right?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. So the activities that we designed was we have a very tight time frame because the project was only for 1 year. So we considered the commitments and organized a 4-day online workshop, which is recorded, to provide the overview about Rubin, the projects, and many aspects of the Rubin ecosystem, including the science collaboration, brokers, the data preview 0.2, for example. We also provide during these 4 days a grant writing overview of some specific National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, and NASA funding opportunities, as well as lesson learned and best practices. And then this for the teams had ample time to start working directly with their mentors during these 4 days, immediately in a hands-on fashion, so they can immediately get entrenched in the research that we're going to conduct over the course of the summer months. The workshop around March, and the research project started around June, when the academic year ended for most of this faculty. In the following months, as I said, before the summer, the teams interacted directly with their mentor at their own pace, at their own time. The Kickstarter team, which is myself, Marcus, and the others here, essentially we checked regularly with both the faculty pairs and the mentors to make sure there were no roadblocks. Again, this was a pilot. We didn't know what to do exactly. So we want to make sure that we could, there was no stopping event anywhere. And then during the summer months, the students made great strides, did a lot of research. They presented the final work in August, including students' participations in these activities. So we accomplished a lot. And I know that my time is short now. So we definitely lowered the entry barriers to Rubin. We did a good job there. We expanded even to rural communities. The faculty student expanded their astronomical knowledge, of course, and they gained technical skills in relation to the Rubin science. And for some faculty, that's sort of a re-engagement to science after many years willing to do so, but not able to do so because of their institutional commitment, specifically teaching, for example. Students gain new and strengthen the skills. There was an active participation by the teams in Rubin scientific group meetings, science collaboration. They participated in papers that were published or will be published soon. They created research materials and even brought their own new ideas within Rubin. That's exactly what we wanted. Definitely, there were some faculty produce materials for research proposal ideas, or even submitted their own research proposal to funding agencies with ideas that came or are part of what they've done this summer. Even the teaching aspect was important in this case. Some of the faculty developed a teaching material in the classroom. They participated in the DP 0.2. And going on the mentor side, all the mentors value this collaboration. They value the contribution of this faculty. They value the contribution of the students. Their research activities advanced, right? And definitely they didn't see this investment to be a waste of time or resources. They actually acknowledged that they paid off, There were challenges. As every pilot has challenges, we had our own. Sometimes we think we solved some of them, sometimes we didn't. And the learning never ends, right? We learned that we need to communicate better and more timely about this project. We could have done more a little bit better job on having more people, more candidates. But the one we had, as I said, three times more than we could actually fund. We really had struggle finding mentors within Rubin, and that's probably because of us, or us at the Kickstarter side of things. We didn't clearly stated was the commitment. So definitely better communication on our part on the commitment that was requested from the mentor, the goals and the strategy would have been better. Maybe a full endorsement by the Rubin leadership would also been sort of an encouragement, like passive aggressive maybe, from the leadership would help having more mentors. So that was definitely one of the challenges that we don't think we solved for sure. The funds, we do know that the funding we had could not cover the full 2 summer months of the faculty salary, and that's probably but we wanted to have a diverse group of folks. So that would have been ideal, right? Having a full 2 months funds for the faculty, 8 to 10 weeks for the students, that would have been better probably. We also did not do a pre-post analysis. Because this was a pilot, we did not have a formal pre-post evaluation of the effectiveness, but only like collected data after the facts, right? We collected data from the mentors, we collected data from the mentees and so on. So that's kind of something we could have done better, and we will definitely do better if we had other opportunities like this in the future. So maybe designing an entry survey and an exit survey could have been beneficial. Maybe tracking the actual deliverables, like did they publish a paper, did you submit a proposal, or maybe tracking the faculty-student pair continuing engagement. Did the faculty continue to participate to the science collaboration weekly or biweekly, or did the students continue work or continue astronomy? These type of resources. So that's essentially all I have for you. This was we have a lot of resources that are available to everybody, our team members and so forth. But I think overall it was a great experience. We learned a lot. I'm gonna stop sharing this time intentionally. But I think we'll hear after me, 2 talks about these projects that were designed thanks to the Kickstarter pilot. So thank you very much.
Excellent, Nino. Thank you so much for that overview. And sorry again that I didn't jump in earlier about the slides.
I'll make sure that I send the link by the end of the talks today where to find this presentation.
Great, thank you. I'll link that into the YouTube and the website for the presentations. Does anyone have any questions? If I may, I'd like to just jump in and ask, have you considered maybe an expanded program? Because I'm sure, I mean, this program above all others really deserves to be expanded massively, and ideally expanded to multi-year studentships. I think it's a great template for a much bigger proposal. Have you considered approaching any foundations and using the pilot study as a way to get such a program going? I mean, you've really proven the results already.
Well, we have not. We have thought about it, but we were so caught up in making sure that we didn't miss anything, right? Making understanding that there were needs on both sides and making sure we, as I said, we learn lessons for sure. We know what we want to do if we do it again, but we haven't talked beyond that with the rest of the team.
That's maybe something that we could, we could consider going back to the HSF with a specific program, and I think this one would make a good one. Jeff.
Sure.
Thanks, Nino. I was going to ask about the you expressed there was some difficulty in finding mentors, and that there weren't a lot of volunteers. Do you have thoughts about how you might change things in the future to better attract people? I guess maybe there's an additional part of this question that is, do you think that part of the issue is that the call was advertised to people who are already involved in Rubin, but the program is meant to pull in people who may not already be involved in Rubin, and maybe that's one of the difficulties?
So the major difficulty, I think, was the message that we sent out when we asked interest form from the mentors, kind of have a lot in it. a lot about the structure, a lot about the project, and could have been perceived as a lot of work from the mentors, right? And so we, at the end of that, we end up having 4 mentors, a group of mentors, right? But I can see how that single email with the PDF document of 2 pages could have been a lot to digest. So a better advertising, including maybe a Q&A session that will explain much more clearly that we didn't ask a day-to-day commitment or X number of hours a week or something like that, would have gone a long way. So that's one aspect. And the other, like for the teams, if we would have sent the email earlier, let's say before December, instead of close to the the February or so, that would have given us much more time to answer question, resolve any doubts of some sort. So I think those were the 2 major obstacles. The reason why is looking within Rubin. Well, first of all, there are a lot of people in Rubin, right? So you look about the number of scientists that are in Rubin throughout all the time zone, that we thought we didn't have any problem with the numbers, right? But the other fact is that we really want someone that could not just talk about the science that they're doing with Rubin, but their engagement within the science operation, the brokers, the DP0. So something a little more Rubin wide, that will allow the people to actually understand a little bit better, get their feet wet into the actual Rubin ecosystem as a whole, in case these people want to get more and more engaged. So that's why we didn't think about going outside. Okay.
Well, thank you very much once again. And we'll move on now to the first of our project speakers. So we will hear from Luis Salazar-Manzano, talking about binary neutron star mergers and what the Rubin Observatory will be able to discover. So Luis, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Salazar-Manzano. I am from Colombia, and I'm also currently doing a master's in physics at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I work together with my advisor here, Dr. Rivera Sandoval, assistant professor at the UTRGV, in this project in which we studied the detectability of kilonovae with the Vera Rubin Observatory. Our mentors are Michael Coughlin, Igor Andreoni, but this is part of a bigger project with collaborators such as Cristina Andrade, Rayel Cercal, and Ritwik Sharma. Just as introduction, you know that the merger of 2 neutron stars, and sometimes the merger of a neutron star with a black hole produce a gravitational wave radiation, but apart from that, we can also have optical and infrared emission. That is what we call a kilonoid, and also we can have short gamma ray burst emission. The kilonovae are very important to constrain the equation of the state of neutron stars, to constrain the Hubble constant, and also they can help to study the production of heavy elements in the universe. I think that you are aware of the GW170817, this multi-messenger detection that was a very big breakthrough for astrophysics, which from a gravitational wave detection was impossible to detect the optical counterpart. However, this is not the only way in which kilonovae can be discovered. Serendipitous discoveries can also take place, such as happened with supernovae. And for this, the Vera Rubin Observatory is very good because it has a very great deepness and has a relatively fast cadence. However, kilonovae are very challenging because they are rare, they are fast, and they're very faint. So our project is within the framework of, okay, Rubin is in these final stages of deciding what will be its observational strategy. So during the previous months and years, the community is making recommendations to maximize different science cases. What we wanted to do is to study what are the best observing strategies for optimizing kilonovae science. in this plot, you can see like the footprint of the Rubin telescope that will be observed during the whole 10 years of the surveys. And yeah, we wanted to understand what are the best cadences, filters, and colors. About what we did, we worked with this code that is called Student Kaini Slicer that was developed by Michael, Igor, and all their research group. And this is a very simplistic representation of the code, but just to mention, what we mostly did is working with, okay, we have some certain observation strategies, some certain cadences. We injected to the simulation a distribution of kilonoid with different parameters. And we wanted to see how these cadences, how well performing they are in detecting kilonoid. And for that, we use we use different metrics. Some metrics, they were only for transient detection, but other metrics were used more for kilonoid characterization. About like this, during the months in which we worked in this project, we had different steps. Of course, the first one was diving into the topic because we were related with binaries, but we work with white dwarf binaries. So we were not very familiar with kilonoid, with LSST. So we have, to review the literature for all of that, and also to get familiar with the metric analysis framework that is used to perform these studies of optimization of observation strategies. And after that, we actually started to work in the project, in the different aspects of the project. Another component that is also important for this project is the involvement with Rubin. And for that, we had a lot of interaction with the research group of Michael, Igor. We are also now part of the Transient and Variable Sky science collaboration. We have access to the Slack and community forum of the LSST. We have access to the data preview zero. So this was also like a very successful goal that was accomplished. I think after getting familiarized with all these topics, we started, and this was also an important part of the project, to optimize the code. We wanted to make it as automatic as possible. And when we have the codes ready, we started with our simulations. Basically, we use the codes and models of Bola and Dietrich for kilonoid that is parameterized it's parameterized by these four parameters: the dynamical mass, the wind mass, the viewing angle theta, and the half opening angle phi. You can see the model to the right. We injected a total of 500,000 kilonoid within a luminosity distance range of between 10 to 1,400 megaparsec with different masses. Some of them were the masses that were found for the GW170817 event, but also we use optimistic and pessimistic masses, because if we have higher masses, the kilonoid will be brighter, or if we have lower masses, we will have fainter kilonoid. We also, for some of the simulations, we vary the viewing angle in all the possible values allowed by the grid, and also we vary like the phi angle in different scenarios. For some cases, what we wanted to understand was what will happen if we have all the kilonoids at, for example, 60 degrees of viewing angle, and what will happen when we had all the kilonoids, for example, 45.6 of viewing angle, and varying all the parameters space of phi. But we also wanted to see what will happen when we have, for example, all the kilonoids with a half opening angle of 60 degrees or 15 degrees, and varying all the possible viewing angles. We work with all the available runs of the 2.0 and 2.1 versions of the LSST cadences. So that is around 265 runs, but some of these runs are basically variation of some parameters. So we have in total like around 50 cadences. And to start showing you like the results that we got, we have here like the efficiencies for the CTFRS simple metric. The CTFRS simple metric, it detects an event if it detects a raise of 1 magnitude per day and a fade of 0.3 per day. And all these efficiencies were normalized by the efficiency of the 2.1 baseline. And we have with different colors, different, for example, in the baseline, the rolling, the triplets, the long gaps, no pairs, and the super repeats that are in principle very useful for transient science, but we also run or simulations for the runs that were developed for the deep drilling fields and all the other families. We can see that in vertical they are grouped the cadence that are basically variation of a parameter. And one of the things that we can see is that the baseline is actually pretty good. It's above average. We can also see like which are the best cadences. For example, the rolling with 6 stripe is in this case the best of the rolling family. The presto gap is also pretty good. The long gaps no pair del one is also pretty good. The super repeats also is very, very nice. Also it's interesting and curious how some of the deep drilling fields that are in principle not designed for transient science, some of them can produce better efficiencies than the baseline cadence. And this is for the CTFRS simple metric, but we have that information for all the other metrics. For example, for the CTFRS simple blue, that is basically the same criteria, but using blue filters. And we have also for the simple red, that is the same criteria, but with red filters. These three are characterization metrics. So we have this say that the object is probably a kilonova. This other metric, the multi-detect, is just simply transient detection. So when it detects an event, when it detects two times the transient. And yeah, we can see here that, for example, here the baseline is also pretty good, not so good for the simple red. We can see that, for example, the presto gap, depending of its tuning, can have very good values within the best of the cadences, but also depending of its tuning can be within the worst for in terms of efficiency for all these three different metrics. Something also that was very interesting is this family, the super repeats, that we can see that is basically the only one, this yellow one, that is consistently within the best cadences for all the different metrics. And we also see that what is actually pretty good for kilonova characterization is not always that good for simple detection. And all these plots that you are watching here were for for a population of kilonova with a very wide range of masses, with the whole variation in the viewing angle, but all of them were fixed to a half opening angle of 30 degrees. But we also run the simulation for when we have all the kilonova fixed to, for example, 15 degrees for the half opening angle, or 75 degrees. And we also have the simulations for when we bring all the possible values, we use all the possible values of phi, but when we fix the viewing angle, so when theta, for example, is 20 5.8 or when it's 90. And for example, these plots that I am showing here are basically very similar to the ones that I showed before, but more detailed. So we are looking at the behavior of basically all the available runs, individual runs, and we can see like separated by these dotted lines, how is what are the efficiencies for a cadence, all the runs in a cadence. And also with different codes, we have the different metrics, and we can see, for example, the direction of how the baseline cadence have been improving. We can also see that for the Presto cadences, there is like a critical value in which the efficiency start to decrease. For example, here is when the separation of the third visit for this family is around 3.5 hours. And also we can see from here that having triplets all the time is better than having triplets half of the time. And also that is better to have triplets with closer filters than having more separated filters. We can also see the super repeats. And yeah, we have the data for also for the deep drilling field runs and also for all the other runs. And with this type of information in which we wanted to see like the parameter space of phi, we can produce this kind of plots in which, for example, here I'm plotting the total efficiency, the absolute efficiency for the CTFRS metrics, the characterization metrics, for this family, the super repeats that I showed you before. That was very interesting because one of the best in all the different metrics. And we can see, for example, that when phi is lower, it's in general better to having the metric, having these criteria with the blue filters. But when we have greater values of phi, it's actually better to the criteria when the filters are red. Yeah, basically we have this type of information for all the runs, for the variation in phi and also for the variation in theta. And another part of what we did during this project was to study the photometric pattern of possible contaminations. Basically, we wanted to see like the color evolution, the range of colors for different possible contaminants, supernova type 1a, fast evolving luminous transient, supernova E2 type 2b, type 1b, and type 1c. So just as a summary, we work at optimizing the code. Also with that, we could do like these massive runs of simulations to identify like what are these better like cadences for kilonovae of the available cadence till now. We also wanted to investigate like the parameter space of theta or phi, the color evolution of possible contaminants, and right now we are working in a paper in which we are like detailing more all of what we did like during this project. So yeah, thank you very much, Lino. Thank you very much everyone who made the Kickstarter project possible. Also, thank you very much to our mentors, Liliana, to everyone. So yeah, that's it.
And thank you very much, Luis, for an excellent talk and a most impressive project results. That really was very, very good indeed. I think we have time for one quick question. If there is anything, I see lots of people clapping. Well done indeed. I did notice in one of your plots that some of the galactic plane simulation, there was a very GP set of simulations, which is often in tension with kilonovae studies because it tends to look in regions that you don't want to visit because they're high extinction. But I noticed that some of that family of simulations was above the line, which suggests that there's some way to resolve that tension. Was that right?
Let me see. Like in one of these ones.
I think it was, yeah, the previous one. Yeah, I think you had it there, the previous slide. Yeah, the Vera
Yeah, I
GP
think that
family.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
can some of those are above the line there, which suggests that there are some variations on that strategy that can balance the needs of kilonova science as well as galactic plane science.
yeah, definitely. For example, also there were some rolling cadences I think that were focused more in the bulge, and since they were focused in the bulge, it makes sense that they are not very helpful for for kilonovae, since they are like extragalactic events. And I haven't like reviewed a lot like what all this point is telling us. Until now I was mostly focused in these different families, but yeah, no, that is actually a very good observation, and I think that once I arrive to study more like what are telling us, like, because yeah, there are a lot of different cadences, all of them have different variations. So yeah, it will be interesting to see like, oh, how like that particular cadence is making the detection of kilonovae pretty good.
Excellent. A lot of interesting science will come out of it. It's the question of finding the one strategy that will suit everybody. Thank you very much again.
You're welcome.
And now it's time to move on to the last of our talks today by Kenneth Carrell, talking are Lyraes in local group dwarf galaxies. So Kenneth.
Okay, thank you for having me first. Let's see if I can share here. Okay. And so my name is Kenneth Carrell, as part of this Kickstarter program with my student Eugen, and our mentors are here, Vittorio, Massimo mainly, but also Marcella was helping us more recently with this stuff as well. So I'm from Angelo State, and so you may be wondering, where is Angelo State and what is Angelo State? So here's a map of Texas at night. We're somewhere kind of here in the middle. If you know where El Paso and Shreveport are, we're about halfway between those two. So out in the middle of nowhere. We are the biggest town in this part of the state. We're also a Hispanic Serving Institute, and we're primarily undergraduate. We don't have a master's or PhD program here. So all the students that I have for research are all undergraduate students, which, you know, as Nino pointed out, limits what we can do, limits funding opportunities and those types of things. So this project has been really great for myself, but also for the students that I currently have and will have in the future. So why RR Lyrae? Why study these things, especially as it relates to LSST, where we've got this really exciting science that we're able to do on the forefront of things? Why are we studying these types of stars specifically? Well, first of all, not that you need any of this, my students do, but you guys don't. So RR Lyrae are variable stars. They're in the instability strip. They're part of a small group, number of groups of stars that vary in brightness over time. And so here's an example of TESS data. And so a lot of what I do is related to the TESS data set. So this is an AB type fundamental mode RR Lyrae, what the light curve looks like. And this is going to be important to us later when we talk about some of these results. This shape here that's very steep, rising light for these AB types. And then there are also the C types that pulsate in the first overtone mode, much more sinusoidal. They do have some structure in places, but you can see here on the right, this is so this is a really weird plot, but left to right, the horizontal axis is the one cycle, And from top to bottom are all of the cycles that Tess observed for this star. This plot on the left is just a subset. So Tess observed this for lots and lots of cycles here, many, many days. And you can see these types specifically are really stable. And so if we sample this light curve enough times, we should get back properties of the light output of this type of variable star. So on top of being variable, they stand out because their brightness changes over time. They're also horizontal branch stars. And so they have the added benefit that they're roughly standard candles. They're not perfectly standard candles. They don't have all the same absolute magnitude, but there's small corrections we can do based on periods and metallicities. And so this plot here on the left is Gaia data of globular clusters. And so you can see there's some range in brightnesses for these horizontal branch stars, but in general, they're pretty good standard candles. So this will allow us to measure distances to things in and around our Milky Way very accurately. Now, because they are standard candles, that puts them on the cosmic distance ladder here, which in more modern times is becoming more important because of this tension between different values of the Hubble constant found with different methods. And so what we're interested in are these local group RR Lyrae, these variable stars that are hundreds of kiloparsec out to maybe a megaparsec or so. Okay, so we started with a list of dwarf galaxies in our local group. So these are the criteria here. They got to be within a 1.5 megaparsecs. They got to be in view of Rubin. And we want to eliminate ultra-faint dwarfs. So on the low end, we cut on the mass at about 1 million solar masses. And on the high end, we cut somewhere around the Magellanic Clouds. So this will give us a good sample of local group galaxies with similar properties. And so here on the right, we've got this list of these that satisfy this criteria. And in the plots that are going to follow, I'm going to concentrate on these plots, these galaxies here, which give us a range. You know, we start with the Magellanic Clouds that are very nearby and go all the way out to about a megaparsec with Tucana. And then a few points sort of in between at these intermediate distances. Okay, so we ran these simulations. We only ran the 2.0 baseline. We could do this with others, but this is where we started. We were testing this pulsating star recovery metric. And we did this with different types of our Lyrae models with these different dwarf galaxies. And so, so here's the part where I say that before this Kickstarter program, I knew exactly zero about LSST and Rubin and any of this stuff. So there was a learning curve for me in this stuff as well. Our mentors were a huge help with the Jupyter notebooks, with how to access all of these resources. So it was really amazing that we were able to do this in such a short amount of time, and we couldn't have done it without our mentors. So here's a movie of the light curve of an RR Lyrae being built up over time in the 6 different LSST passbands. And so you can see in these initial plots, when we just have just a few points here, we don't get a good fit. We don't get results for some of these in short survey times. But over the 10-year lifespan of the survey, we expect to build up a lot of data points and fill in these light curves for these variable stars. And so here's a couple of examples of when these fits go really bad. They both happen to be in the G band. It just happened to be that way. But since we're fitting these models with 3 Fourier terms, so we're trying to estimate light curve parameters with a Fourier fit to this data. There are the potential for some pretty big problems. Here are 2 examples of that. So up on top, you can see that we've got a gap in the data here, which allows that fit to just plummet down to very faint magnitudes. And so this goes all the way down to a magnitude of 33, which is not possible with LSST. And so if we're trying to find a mean magnitude for this star, it's going to put it somewhere here in the middle of 29 or 30, which is not realistic. And then on the other side, we've got a similar problem with a gap here, and our fit just goes crazy with that gap. This time it's going towards the bright end. So we incorrectly assumed that our mean magnitude is much brighter than it actually is. So we have to be careful with this. Depending on the uniformity and the cadence strategy and all of these things, we can have these gaps where we have these problems with the fits that can cause major problems. Okay, but if we look at the measured mean magnitude as a function of time, overall, we get better results with longer survey times. Here on the right, you see with periods, we get very minor differences in periods, even in short amounts of survey time. The first data release at 6 months should have pretty decent period estimates for these stars. But mean magnitudes, and we'll see amplitudes as well, are going to take a little bit longer. But it's important to note here that when we started doing this, we would run one of these sets of simulations, and then we'd run it again to test, and we get completely different results, especially in the U and G bands, and especially for these shorter numbers of nights, because this metric injects noise to fake these measurements. And so we couldn't just do one set of runs. We had to do a number of runs and find averages and standard deviations to find out how the noise is going to affect our results as well. So here's a movie that goes through as a function of distance and survey time, how well we do with some of these dwarf galaxies marked. So LMC is this closer one. Phoenix is here at just over 0.4 megaparsecs. And this actually has Antlia, which is just over a megaparsec. So this is just a movie, but if we look, so this is for the C-type, different types give us different results too, but this is sort of the main result here. If we look at the mean magnitudes we recover, when it's short survey times, U and G, we don't get anything in the first year even, but at about year 2, we start picking up some results in those. For R and I, where we have more coverage, we get results sooner, we get better results on average quicker as well. And so you can see, and for both types, A, B, and C types, we recover the mean magnitudes fairly well, better than 1/10 once we get out to a few years of survey time. The amplitudes, on the other hand, are slightly different. So on the right is the RRC types. You can see we recover those amplitudes fairly well. Those sort of around 0, maybe slightly over, which means our measured amplitude is slightly more than the model tells us it should be. But for these AB types, you can see the opposite is true. We sort of settle in around -0.2, 0.2. So we're not near 0 here. And this is because we're only fitting with 3 Fourier terms. So with that really steep rise time for the AB types, we don't reach the max and min of that light curve. And so our amplitudes are slightly smaller than what they should be, but it's consistent, it looks like. So in 3 to 5 years of survey time, we should be getting really good results to most of these nearby dwarf galaxies for these RR Lyrae stars. So again, in all of these pass bands as well, it's not just a combined result here. In each of these pass bands individually, we'll get really good results. For certain types of RR Lyrae, our amplitudes will also be really good, but we may need to look at these AB types to see if maybe adding more Fourier terms is better. Maybe the amplitude's not so important. You know, the distances are period and metallicity. So as long as we get periods and mean magnitudes good, then maybe that's fine. And we seem to be doing good on those two things. So in the future, again, we might work on Fourier terms, but we would like to compare to other survey strategies. Does this make a big difference for things like RR Lyrae? And additionally, something that I've been working on is how to transient feature. So these are for stable pulsations for these types, but we know that's not true for all of these types. So how does a Blasco effect change our results for distances to these dwarf galaxies, and other transient behavior that's been discovered recently as well? So that's all I have. Thank you for listening. Take any questions.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. That's excellent work. And I see lots of people clapping. Does anyone have any questions? You mentioned at the end applying it to more simulations. This was primarily from the baseline 2.0. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Right, because I know there were several simulations which included more dense coverage of specific areas, in particular in some of the galactic plane and also the Magellanic Clouds. And some of those might enhance the results that you've been seeing.
Right, yeah, because some of these, especially the blue bands, right? Like in the first 6 months, we'd only have 4 data points for this 2.0 baseline for some of these. And so it's hard to get a light curve from 4 data points. And so changing strategies may not change that significantly. And in some of the tests I've done, it looks like maybe around 10 data points is when you start to routinely recover some of these parameters a little bit better. So it may matter some, it may not matter at all, unless it's specific to those dwarf galaxies themselves.
That's interesting. I see a question from Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. This is cool stuff. I was curious whether I could imagine when things are just near the single visit limiting magnitude, you're going to miss things when they're at the lower portion of their light curve. And then I would expect that you would see a trend in the recovered mean magnitude relative to the known mean magnitude that depends on distance, but it didn't appear that way in your figure. Do you have an idea?
So yeah, so that's it's passband dependent and distance dependent. And I stopped at 1. We've got results for Antlia, which is a little over 1, and that puts us down around 26, 27 magnitude in most of these bands. And that's when we might start getting that huge scatter. And yeah, shortening that bottom half of that light curve. So yeah, we have to be careful. It's because we don't know if it's noise or if it's shortening, and it's passband dependent. So in the redder bands, the amplitudes are smaller for these stars than in the bluer bands. So we may be able to tell a little bit from that. I don't know. But yeah, it'll definitely be a problem at the farthest distances for sure.
Question from Nino.
This is a small comment. I just want to point out that what you saw from Kenneth and Luis and Liliana Sandoval is Luis' advisor, was just achieved over the course of the past 5-6 months. They started from probably a very minimal knowledge of Rubin and and all this, the metrics and everything else, to the point where you see today. So I think this is one of the power of the pilot that we designed with Marcus and Sarah and the others, where having people already interested in some science that Rubin already achieved, make them really powerful later on in a very short amount of time, that we need to support them moving forward. And I think that's a lesson for agencies and Rubin, that if Kenneth, Liliana, and all the other mentors would have the possibility to access funds, they will bring this work to a much, much higher level within their own, realm of movements within their own institutions. So I think what you've seen today, keep in mind, was achieved within 6 months time span, thanks to the mentors' work as well. But again, all the work was done by the Kenneth and Liliana and Jennifer. So
yeah, a year ago, I had no idea where stage LSST was in, or the fact that Rubin was actually being built, or any of those things. So yeah, to think we've come this far in that time is pretty amazing. And it's, a testament to you putting that together, connecting everybody that we needed to have connected, and the workshop that really kind of got us going. Without all those things, it wouldn't have been possible.
And good luck with your career, Grant.
Thank you.
Thank you. A really tremendous program. Are there any other questions to wrap up with? Well, I am conscious of the time and I know people have other commitments. So I will say thank you once again to all of our speakers and many congratulations on the excellent work that you have done. I really look forward to seeing the publications in future. So this is a continuing series of Kickstarter Colloquia. We will have more of them in future. We're taking a bit of a hiatus as of next week because, of course, there is the LSST in Europe meeting going on. But I hope you'll join us for a further colloquia, which will restart the following week. So until then, I will say goodbye to everybody and thank you all again.